Okay, so we want you to have a nice break before the ending of the evening, so we try to keep it brief. We already spared some minutes. So we will make a very short conclusion about the topics we discussed, and then we will ask again the presenters to make some statements if they want to add something. You don't have to, but you can. Shall I start?
Yeah, I think
maybe you should start because you were talking about big scale.
Yeah,
things.
Okay. We can do the big scale first and then come down to the building scale. So what we were talking about, I think, as a conclusion, of course, it was a lot of discussions that and topics that were open, and I don't really think that we got to the bottom of any of them. But I think it's normal that in 40 minutes it's not possible to go. But I think the ideas that were brought up were important. At first, we were talking about transportation developments and how it can be beneficial for the development of large housing estates. And one of the conclusions which Lenka phrased, I think, very well, is to have sufficient, have in all of these housing estates a sufficient capacity for safe and sustainable mobility on an individual and on a mass scale based on a linear way. But on the other subject that is like basically tram lines and metro lines, but also bike lanes as linear systems, and of course the questions of affordability came up. Where we ended the discussion and moved on to another subject, which was more about the public amenities and how schools and the different services that help the social cohesion of and the social functioning of these large housing estates are necessarily developed. Sometimes in vacant plots, sometimes by destruction of over-densified areas, or sometimes by the refurbishment or restructuring of existing buildings. In that sense, one of the very important topics I think that came up was the questions of 15-minute city. So basically, having all of the all of the services in reachable distance that would help keep locals. Yes, thank you, Robert. And Robert was my amazing assistant of taking notes all along. So I think. So lastly, what we started to open up as a topic was social cohesion and identity, but we didn't actually start to answer the question of local identity in the case of large housing estates, because it really comes down to an architectural scale. So we brought up the question here.
We talked about it.
So please, Esther, can you continue our ideas, and then we will have a final question for all.
Okay, yeah. So we can do it like that. I think our session was also very fruitful, but we only warmed up by the end. But maybe I just want to highlight two things we didn't mention. We just didn't have popped up during the presentations. One is that one solution approach would be to recreate new type of project and planning attitude when it comes to renovation, and maybe it would be like a good opportunity to actually create an example project and an example process of renovation such estates, which doesn't exist yet, so far we know. So this is one thing I think is important. And the other is that we had, I think, an interesting discussion about the aesthetic values and how the facade and energetical renovations, so like the existing examples, what are they like? And I think most of the members agreed that future-proof solutions is coming first. Like these estates has to be climate positive, and we really have to think about the challenges coming in the next 50 years, and not only talking about aesthetics. So I think this is this was interesting because this was the first time like everybody really agreed on that. And of course, we talked about accessibilities, digital solutions, and I just don't want to read all these things which you already mentioned in the presentations. And yeah, so maybe that's it. And about the identities, we also had a session about the importance of involvement of the dwellers, the locals, but also the other citizens, and of course the decision makers and so on. But I don't want to go into that because tomorrow we will have a session on participatory processes and approaches. So thank you very much for everybody, and now we will ask the presenters if they want to add something to their to the last sessions. Maybe starting with yours.
Yes, definitely. I would like to ask Hanna if you would like to answer the last question, which I posed but we didn't have time for, which would be the question of building a local identity in the face of destruction.
Yeah, thank you. So about social cohesion, I can say that Ukraine now is total social cohesion society, really, because the dangerous united people. So, for example, it's very popular now to come like a volunteer to clean the territory. Not even after the missiles attack, it's usually we make it, but even for making something in the public space, just for people. The last example I can say that we made a therapy garden with a Dutch architect near the Hospital of Mental Problems. And it was really a unique project, so the city authorities helped us with all documents and all this without any bureaucracy. About 1,000 volunteers came during some weeks for Saturdays and Sundays, and we made a very beautiful open space for anybody who would like to be there, as for people from the hospital, as for Kievans, as for tourists. And it was really an example of the united work, united job. So now this common work for public interests, it becomes usual in Ukrainian cities, and it's very important. My feeling is, yeah.
Thank you, and I think that will be also a very interesting subject for tomorrow's section 3, so the morning section, when we will talk about participatory processes, activism, and bottom-up initiatives in case of development. Esther, you said you have a question.
Yeah, so we want to somehow conclude, but of course it's not possible because we have just so many ideas. So instead of that, we heard many good examples and good approaches. So as let's say a last round, we would like to ask the 6 impulse presenters to just add some ideas which you see as very crucial aspects or criteria for a successful transformation. I know that some of you already had similar questions, but please, after the discussion, make up your mind. So again, the question is for the impulse speakers to summarize some of the main criteria you see as the key of the successful transformations. I see that Hubert wants to start.
Yeah, should we go in the order that we had the presentations in, for example?
What do you want to add? Okay, I will make notes. Okay, good.
Hubert.
Yeah, after
Okay, so I think that the crucial thing for the success, or maybe things for the successful transformation is to be oriented at following local conditions, and also to make it, as I said before, not the top down, nor bottom up, but horizontally, when different levels cooperate together, and also to make it in such a way that it can react on the development and be transformative. And the last things, it should be planned for different budget possibilities. So some like dream plans, but also the plans for the situation where there is no budget, also the scenario, and also to plan some quick wins. So start for something which you can do within few months, that not to wait, not to avoid future washing, that you make great plan which will be possible only when you have big money and complicated procedures follows.
Thank you. So Peter, please also think about your suggestions about the criteria of a successful transformation. I know that you already mentioned some of it, but please conclude.
Maybe I would like to add that maybe sometimes it's good to doing nothing. There were already mentioned a few times Lacaton Vassal studio, and they have this famous project on the square in Bordeaux. I don't remember the name, where they decided doing nothing. And also in the case of Petržalka and this axis where the 30 or 40 years were doing nothing, where they didn't construct their nothing.
It's funny because Lacaton and Vassal tried once to do here something and then they did nothing.
Yeah. So we
Beyond
have many
that.
examples of.
I don't know if it was voluntary.
Yeah. So maybe this is.
Thank you. Okay. Tina, Tim, please. Yes. Sorry.
Okay, I try not to repeat because, it's difficult. Maybe to make the transformation as flexible and adaptive as possible, so it's not so like really finished, but rather it can have a continuation. Maybe just this.
Yes, we discussed a lot on that. So flexibility and adaptive reuse was the magic word. Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you. Who was after Tinatin? Yeah, Hannah, please. You were too short either way, so you can have your conclusion.
I think that the best way is to involve all stakeholders on the very early stage. I don't know in different countries how the situation is, but in Ukraine, if you did not ask somebody, you will have a protest. So the one of the ways is to find all these stakeholders and all people who can be interested in this, and at least inform and involve on the very first stage. So as I said, the manager of any project or the architect has to be like a social glue. So for different interests, and then you will have the assistants, not the enemies. So it works every time. So involving on the very early stages all stakeholders, different persons.
Yes, Robert wants to have a question.
I wonder always when I hear that topic, participation is sometimes and unfortunately executed when was something happening. So it's too late. So it's like the precondition is being too late. So, and then, of course, the solution would be from the earliest possible moment. But still, you have to set a time order. Because that's a dilemma, one of the dilemmas of participation. I think there's some more, but this is a crucial one, because you always have to say, okay, now we started with the people who were involved at this very early time. And then there will be other people coming and say, but I was not there. So this is like a general dilemma of participation next to some others we should take up into documentation. But how would you, like this is such a, this is such a...
But that's the topic of tomorrow, Robert.
I'm just
you just told me not to talk too much on participation today.
I just wanted to mention that. Whenever someone says like earliest possible moment, so this is actually the crucial thing, because you still set a time limit. Otherwise, you will never ever start.
Yes, I think what we discussed in the workshop and can reflect on that, which is not the topic of tomorrow, is that we also have to think about the policy. Yeah, it's fine. So we just added that we have to include such aspect to the policies So when it has the good time, who should be addressed and so on. We also touched it when it comes to the taxes. We also touched it when we were suggesting to have like an exemplary project of renovation, because there you can also add these elements. And we talked a lot about how the process should be built up, but I think we can go into that tomorrow if that's good for you. Okay. Regina, please.
It's impossible not to connect, so I would say also, maybe it's a tomorrow topic, but somehow we should really, sorry for the word, but educate the public that it can be really goes through maybe just walking around the cities together and give them all the knowledge and really simple connections about this built environment. It really can help, and it can be really a base for any type of participatory project or anything. But I would like to add also an example, because you mentioned that you conclude that there is no one or there is no pilot. I think the problem that we don't really have pilot in Eastern Central Europe, because we have many pilots in the Western. One of my favorites is a Sussex project from Delft for Hof, the Poptahof neighborhood. Actually, this is, I think, a really good one. They also demolished building and build new ones, but they renewed one. They have really good new services, and they have a totally new master plan. I think it's going to be realized in the next 20 years. So I have the conclusion that we have really good examples around Western Europe, but we don't have it in Central and Eastern Europe, where the ownership is totally different, where we don't really have housing associations. So this is a task to have a pilot in this part of the Europe.
So maybe adding to that, we are also collecting the ideas who thinks is able to run such a pilot project, because NEB will have such fundings for such projects from January. So anybody here is willing to have an ownership on such a project, then please tell us. So last but not least, Guido.
Thank you. Okay. The first point for me is never accept a bad situation, or never accept, for example, segregation in the large housing estates. And when you aren't able to do so, never accept it completely, and always try to see the opportunities and not only to see the bad corners or the problems in the large housing estate. And the third point would be always, we already had the point of education. You have to have the best schools, best childcare in the large housing estates, and that must be the best schools and childcare of the whole city. And you will need the best public transport in the large housing estates, as every other condition will be the next point for people to say, I don't want to live there. So you have to have the objective good conditions for living there for all of the people. And that will cost money, to be honest. And as a first step, and a very fast step, the big repair. It's always the same. A lot of solutions are working if they are in a good condition. So playgrounds which doesn't function are absolutely a no-go situation. And so you have to do that first. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So I'm looking at Robert now, how to continue with the night, but I think we will have a break after this, and then we will have a keynote before dinner. Yeah, okay, that's a yes. Okay, so thank you really for participating in the workshops. We know it's been a little bit late, but actually many concrete ideas also popped out, so we will try to reframe them and make a written suggestion for the organizers and the partners of this conference, so it's not for nothing, for sure. If somebody has a lot of free time, we are really happy for co-editing such papers, but yeah, that was the session for today. So thank you again, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So now, how long break we have?
We will have. What time do we have? So now it's 7. So I think the keynote speaker is still approaching because of public transport reasons, which unfortunately in the regional and transport in Germany due to our best ever carrier Deutsche Bahn is not so predictable. It's not the best yet. So yeah. So I would say that we should have probably 20, like, let's try to do 19, 20. And as I know my audience here, yeah.
Let's say 20.
Let's say 20 minutes. 20 minutes. And there will be a reception afterwards. So this is a short snack, and afterwards there will be the drinking and talking. Open end.
Right. Thank you very much.